Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Well, hello. Sorry, I'm trying to read and talk at the same time. Why aren't you responding to my emails, says this person.
Yeah, that's a spam thing.
Yeah, you bet it is. Who the hell
I'm
are you?
anxiously waiting to hear from you via mysterious website with a French extension at the end. Jeez. What could go wrong?
No, I know. Isn't this nice? It's like having a pen pal, though. Who knows? Who knows what doors will open if I were to reach out? You know, nothing ventured, nothing gained.
Right.
Potter. Oh boy. So here we are again. It be Friday. It's May.
Yeah.
It's May. Do you know the words?
No, I don't.
The lusty month of May.
Oh, dear me. Goodness.
Do you know where that's from?
It sounds like a musical of some sort.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Because only in a musical could you say the lusty month of May, I think.
That where everyone goes blissfully astray.
Dear me.
It's time to do a rotten thing or two. I don't know if it's rotten. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I got up this morning and the birds were chirping.
Yeah, they're chirping.
We had the coffee. I went out to the sidewalk to get the paper. And I sat down with my coffee and opened up my paper. And you know what was on the front page?
What was there?
Benghazi. I was just like, you have got to be like,
but in their universe,
but this is the Post-Gazette. They put it on the front page.
It is?
Yeah. It's down in the corner.
Yeah, but it was. But in that universe, Benghazi is like a fruitcake.
You know what?
It goes forever. It just isn't.
All right. I'm going to put an end to this right now. I did it. It was my fault. I could have sent a rapid deployment force to Benghazi and saved those guys' lives.
Yeah, you did
but
not.
I was in the middle of a killer score on Minesweeper, and I just said, you know what? Notify me by mail.
That's it.
That's it. Okay? Can we be done now?
Can we? No, of course not.
And they still got it wrong, apparently. Apparently what it was is some general was testifying for the 477,000th, hearing on Capitol Hill, and he said something, and he said we should have done more. We should have done more. And then everybody's like, "Oh, the general says we should have done more," and then we should have tried harder. And then, later, some Democrat says, I want you to respond to this other statement from this other general who said we couldn't have done anything. Do you disagree with that? I don't.
That doesn't.
It just doesn't even. Of course. Like what? And I always think, I think like when stuff like this goes on, I remember back to like when I was, in 11th grade taking U.S. history, and you'd read about Teapot Dome or these other things, and you think. Is Benghazi going to get mentioned? Yeah. Like when my kid is reading a thing, is there going to be even a sentence about it?
No.
Or will it be a thing that is it just because they can just talk about it? Like ad nauseum, because there have been 477,000 hearings.
You know what I was
Do
trying
we
to
now
think?
have to say that it mattered in a generation
Okay,
from
here's
now?
what I was thinking myself this morning in regard to this. Do Democrats think of a time that Democrats have persisted?
Yeah.
Okay, Can you think of? I mean, maybe we've done the same. Have we done the same thing?
It's a little hard. It's hard to remember because I think I won't even remember what Benghazi was 2 years from or 5 years from now.
No, I know.
For that
but
reason,
has there been a thing that we just kept going back to hammer the Republicans?
Yeah, you want to be careful of the confirmation bias, which is like, oh, well, we don't do this sort of thing, and so you forget the times.
No,
like
I worry about that. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. No, I do too. I don't.
But I can't think of one.
I don't think so. And of course, the real trick here is when the scandals that we remember always seem more important. And I would have to argue they are more important. What I can say is this: I don't recall, and I came of age politically during the Reagan administration, so I have, if anything, have a sort of an exaggerated recollection of all of those events. I remember the bombing in Beirut that killed 240 plus Marines.
Right.
I don't recall some huge slate of hearings that became the defining issue for going on 2 years.
No, that's true. And what was our reaction to that? We pulled
out of Beirut.
We got Ronald Reagan, their great Ronald Reagan, pulled the hell out.
Yeah.
He didn't bomb him into the Stone Age. He ran.
Yes, that's right. He demonstrated weakness before the terrorists.
So if that were Barack Obama, if not 4, but 200, almost 300 Americans were murdered.
Yeah.
And we turned tail and ran. That was our reaction. Yeah. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
This is effing Benghazi.
Yeah.
4.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because they've got a House majority, and they're going to use it, and they're certainly not going to use it to pass legislation to benefit Americans. I mean,
See, you're obviously a radical to make a statement like that. Are you kidding me?
Anywho.
Okay, anywho.
Sorry, I was looking at it, I was just like, wow. Wow. Even if and what's the worst thing that could possibly be? We blew it. 4 people died who shouldn't have died, and there were mistakes made, and the White House tried to cover up an embarrassing and fatal tragic error that involved 4 people in what was essentially a war zone.
And I have to steel yourself because when Hillary Clinton runs,
and this is what this is really
because she was
about.
Secretary of State, right?
Yeah.
I don't,
and everybody knows the Secretary of State is responsible for telling the military to go in. Everybody. That's why Condoleezza Rice was calling the shots in Iraq. Anywho.
Now you need to calm down.
I know. I'm past it now. So it's out of my system. Yeah.
Okay. I want you, since you brought up the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette front page,
yes.
I want to talk about their lead story a little bit.
Yes.
And I want to talk about, I'm skewing off the main subject, which is Chatham's trustees have voted to make that long, over 100-year-old, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so the college
women's
for women.
College.
Yes, yeah.
Co-ed.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of alumni.
Yeah. That's one of those words you always see it on the page, and you're like, huh.
Alumni.
Yes. The plural of alumna. Yeah.
Are really
not
unhappy.
Happy.
Yeah. Here are the things I want to ask you about.
Go.
There's a picture of women supposedly burying Chatham. They have a coffin.
Yeah.
It says women pick up a cardboard coffin during a protest in the university-designated free speech zone. What?
Back when I were in school, the whole campus was a free speech zone.
The whole campus is a free speech zone. What the hell? And let me just say this to the Chatham alumni. To allow yourself to be herded into something called a free speech zone is incredible to me. And you should have broken out of that pen and not acknowledged it.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Well, these are well-behaved.
Why? But
they were also asked to leave the campus last week as well, I believe. They had staged another.
Here's the thing. Now, but here's the thing. Chatham, what's with a free speech zone?
Yeah. No, I agree with you.
I'm more freaked about that than co-ed.
Yeah.
What the? F is going on?
Yeah, and you got a board of trustees taking a
listen, that's the other thing. The board the board of trustees met behind closed doors. Let's hear it for transparency. Met behind closed doors. They never announced what the vote was.
Yes, the actual vote total. Yeah.
The vote total. And then the trustees left the building by a side exit that was blocked by campus security. Yeah. Whether or not they were wearing full SWAT gear, we do not know.
Yeah.
Guys, yoo-hoo! Esther, what the F is going on? Yeah. This is nuts. Do you really think your alumni are going to be a physical threat to you?
Yeah.
What in the name
of God? The same alums who they take such pride in and boast about, and the wonderful education they got here.
I'm just blown away by it.
And they're treating them like Clive Bundy's militia.
I know. What has become of us? This craziness.
Not us. I mean, let's put it where it is. It's on Esther. Yeah. I mean, this is on Esther Barazone and the board of trustees.
Are you nuts? Have you lost your footing? Esther! Maybe that's what comes from serving under Jeffrey Romoff so long, because she sits on the board of UPMC. The people are not the enemy, okay? Yeah. And
certainly your own alums are not
the enemy.
And it's not like anybody else showed up at this thing. It's not like there was some massive, radical leftists, whatever. These were like a couple dozen of your alums. That's who it was. It was a couple dozen of your alums. What are you expecting? Occupy?
Who are so well behaved, as Mr. Potter pointed out, that they actually agreed to stand in your stupid little free speech zone. Yeah. That is insane.
Yeah.
It's insane. And it is a terrible, terrible, what's the word? blocked.
Yes, a stain, a stigma.
On your campus, on the very idea of higher education. Yes. I mean, I really am. I was like, about both of those facts.
Yeah.
Meeting behind closed doors, slipping out a side door, security keeping the what? Rabble from the trustees? What in the name of God is going on there?
Yeah. Well, look, I mean...
What? Are you going to be serious here?
I am. I am. I mean, this... I've spoken with some alums who are sort of surprised at Esther Barazone's somewhat high-handed treatment of them, and I don't think people who are familiar with that institution are surprised at all. I mean, this is
how she operates.
Yeah, I mean, this is how stuff gets done, and it's only because, look, she's been in charge there for 20 plus years. Mm-hmm. She's got a board who obviously, I mean, they didn't say what the total was, but it was described as near unanimous. I mean, this is Esther Barazone calls the shots on that campus, and what's sort of surprising to me is that alums are surprised by it. That they are surprised at previous meetings of this have been open to students or whatever, but they've been closed to media. When they've previously discussed it, as I said last week, some protesters were asked to leave the campus. Who's her mentor?
North Korea's new Esther. I mean, I know this woman, and I mean, she could have been a friend of mine. I mean, she's a bright, capable. What have you gone astray, my dear? Okay, let's hear.
We got a call.
Call, if they're still there.
Hi, Lynn. It's Beth. Proud Chatham alum from 1992.
Hey.
And I'm sorry to say, was on the search committee for Esther Barazone.
Oh.
Is that how it's pronounced? You pronounce the E? Barazone?
I was always told it was Barazone.
So what was the search committee process like?
Well, that's the thing. I was also involved when the college went through this 24 years ago.
Yes, right.
And it was a much different process. The board came to the conclusion, look, we can't turn back once we flip the switch.
Right.
Let's get all parties involved. And there really was. I mean, it was bringing a whole community together before Hillary even, kind of tagged that phrase.
Right.
and you had a lot of involvement, and you had alums getting involved before, and Becky Stafford, who was the president at the time, was asked to resign, and a bunch of other people left.
Yeah.
When we were on the search committee, and it was an incredible experience. It's something I'll never forget. But we were down to 3 candidates, and we were all called to the boardroom that morning. We all kind of looked at each other like, why are we being summoned here? And we found out that Esther was offered the job. There was never a final vote on Esther being the next president of the college.
Well, who finessed that if you were on the committee?
Hey, I don't know. I know that we had Jane Berger, who was at that point chairwoman of the Board of Trustees, and she's the one who made the announcement. So the board decided to hire Esther before there was any final vote.
Yeah. Wow.
Which really surprised all of us.
Now, wait, she was brought in, though, wasn't she, to revitalize this girls' school? So where did I see somebody?
Women.
Yeah, well,
how do you think she did? Like up until the past couple of years.
First of all, I think that I think that you haven't had enough change in that board, number one.
Yeah.
And they've pretty much gone by whatever Esther has stated. From what I'm hearing, the vote actually was pretty close.
Oh, really?
I'm guessing that Louise Brown and Jane Berger and Seago Falk all voted in favor. They wouldn't have been the dais poster children.
Yes, yeah. Yeah.
But I think Esther's done a horrible job, in all honesty.
Really?
Really?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the place changed dramatically. I would say, it kind of went from more so of a liberal arts college, i.e., and I was too, and I was so pissed off by that free speech zone bullshit.
Yeah.
I'm like, when did we go also from now a single-sex college to, we also lost our liberal arts college status?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, seriously, and I know from alums who went to protests, you'd get emails from people that because the university or the college is on a private campus and it's on a private road,
right?
Even though as alums you're supposedly allowed there at all times, that was the reason I think they were herded into the free speech zone, afraid that they would be arrested.
Right.
Because they have that right to do that. If
right.
it was on Pitt's campus or Carnegie Mellon's campus, it would be a different situation.
Right.
My sense is the first time I even heard the term free speech zone, I think, was at a Republican convention, maybe when Nixon was being renominated or something. It was something
I remember
like
in the
that.
Bush administration.
Okay, but I'm thinking I'm going earlier than that.
Maybe.
But this is something that it is the very idea of a free speech zone on a college campus,
arts college campus
is so it
violates the mission and charter of the school. Period.
Exactly. So, I don't know how I don't know. I sometimes wonder the fiscal aspect of why these schools are going co-ed. I think are you sure you're taking that into account? Is it feasible anymore to
I've
make
been very aware of the fiscal needs of the college.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is, and again, this is where I get back to my point with Esther and communication, et cetera. You get those hip hurrah, flyers, emails. I know several people who have volunteered to say, look, we'll go to our local high schools, do college fairs, whatever, as far as bringing in enrollment.
Yeah.
As far as the endowment, my understanding is it's still pretty solid. I mean, there's a lot of old money in that college.
Yeah.
Well, can we also
but also the quality of the education, I hate, and it kills me to say this, has gone down.
Okay.
When I was there, you had pretty much a 90% all PhD staff.
Yeah.
Now it's a bunch of adjuncts and visiting, and if you're going to spend $45,000 a year, you really need to have a high grade and high level of education.
Exactly.
And she has killed a lot of the tenure tracks there, and there were a lot of incredible professors that have left.
Hey, can we also talk about what she is getting paid?
Yeah.
Oh, I know. And here's the
Wait,
other thing
isn't she one of the highest paid?
She's paid more than Nordenberg. Yeah.
But, here's the thing. She sits on the board also of UPMC.
Yes.
Two of those board people of UPMC who she sits with also sits on her board.
Yes.
Well, that's the way it works.
So how is that not a conflict of interest?
Well, hey.
Sadly, I mean that is not atypical in the corporate world to have these sort of what they call interlocking directorships. I think.
That is correct.
And since with the rise of an eds and meds economy, in which
exactly. But I think the marketing and branding of the school. there's so many ways today that you could be taking it that they haven't done. Well, they haven't taken advantage of so much, and it just drives me absolutely crazy that they did this in such a fast, slipshod manner.
I mean, I dated a woman who went to Vassar, which went co-ed shortly before she had gone there, and it seemed like it was fairly successful. But you know, Vassar is a nationally known brand.
Again,
it's a nationally known brand.
Standards.
Yeah, and the question I think really is, you know, first of all, I suspect you and other alums are going to be less likely to give money in the future. And the question really is, here was a thing that Chatham, you know, I understand you're single sex, you're cutting out half your potential market for students, but on the other hand, it was also something that defined you.
Right.
So once you give that up, what does Chatham have exactly to offer that another private liberal arts school can't offer? I mean, there was a tuition, you said $40,000 a year now. I mean,
it's high.
I mean, where I
You're
went to school,
you're going to be competing now with Washington and Jefferson and everybody else.
Allegheny College, Westminster.
There's no niche that you could have been marketing yourself at.
It's very.
And the thing is, Vassar, again, high academic.
Yes.
But you know what, Chris? From what everybody starts researching this stuff. I think they only have a 20% male population still.
That's right.
It's really small. And I guess the thing that drives me just crazy is, you know, working in the work world, you still see the boys' clubs out there.
Yeah.
You still have today seeing that, you know, the lady from Anheuser-Busch, who was a high executive, you know, she's filing suit because she couldn't access the old boys' club crew. And you look at her own region. It screams to me we still need some sort of single-sex college where you're making strong, opinionated women to try to fight and combat this.
Right, and not putting them in a free speech zone when they actually
not
speak their
baby
minds. Once they go away with their diploma, they learn to speak for themselves intelligently and with a strong academic background. You pen them up in a thing.
Well, I think
we can speak in more than monosyllables. You must stand in here.
Hey, thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, bye.
You know, the other thing I'll just say, this is sort of fun. I mean, I think what's coming down the road is a broader look at the sort of economic context in which this stuff is going on. And I wrote a story a couple weeks ago about Point Park University, where the adjuncts there are unionizing, and don't be surprised, by the by, if you see a similar effort in Chatham in the coming months. Is all I'm going to say about that.
Well, now Point Park, is that also with the U.S.
The steelworkers who, yes, their adjunct project, the same people who did Duquesne are now doing Point Park, and don't be surprised if you see them on Chatham or some other local campuses as well in the months to come. And I will say this is one of the things that interested me about that thing was the president of Point Park gave a speech in February where he basically said, we're in a lot of trouble. Student satisfaction is down. Their recruitment is off. They're not in immediate financial trouble, but they've got issues. And one of the things he said, which you could see other people saying, including Esther, President Barzoni herself, is a lot of small liberal arts schools are not going to be around in 5 or 10 years. And you're starting to see the winnowing process, I think. And maybe this is sort of the canary in the coal mine. We got a call.
Hello, caller.
Hi, good morning, Lynn and Chris. Hi. Let me throw a different angle to this. Well, I guess it's not a different angle. I attended an all-males college, Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I was able to do some research within the last couple of weeks because I knew that there was some information about the Title IX incidents that are occurring in some of the colleges throughout the country, and that at some point in time, this week or next week, it was going to be a major story, a news story.
Yes.
But I was shocked to see, and you may be surprised to hear this, that there are only 5 traditional all-male colleges in the U.S., and there are 48 female, all-female colleges. And I actually also even think that the opposite of these issues that are occurring with these Title IX incidents would be a lot less if there were actually more male colleges. I know, Lynn, you may say, well, we don't need anything else. Men, everything here is basically for men. But I think that this will help the issue, and I think a lot of people are actually surprised when I told people this, that there was only 5 traditional male colleges, all male colleges in the U.S. Now there are some Jewish colleges for men, and then also some seminaries.
Right.
The Christian ones, but there are only 5 traditional male colleges.
Huh.
I'm trying to even figure. Yeah, I'm even trying to figure out what they are. No, I was actually saying yesterday, given these reports that boys are falling so far behind girls, K through 12 now, and they represent a minority of college graduates now. And I was thinking maybe the answer is single-sex education. We used to think it was necessary for the girls. Maybe it's also necessary for boys. I don't know. I don't know.
Absolutely.
Well, let's.
Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, I think there's a whole bigger sweeping discussion that needs to happen about universities and the academy and what it's supposed to be.
Well, can a liberal arts college survive in this day?
Yeah, I mean, yes.
Yes?
Yes, I think so. I mean, I do think there's going to be this whole thing in some ways. I mean, this is a conservative argument that higher education is a bubble, quote unquote, and because conservatives love to say it because they love to think about all these women's studies professors being tossed out and and on the unemployment line. I mean, I tend to be suspicious of it, but let's be honest about the underlying economics here. We have seen in recent decades this massive growth in the academy, in University Inc., and it's being financed largely by massive amounts of student loan debt. And sooner or later, that is unsustainable. But what's happened is, and all these schools are doing it, my alma mater has done it to an extent, is they invest their money in lifestyle centers. They become lifestyle centers where it's, swanky, on-campus housing and great fitness centers and all this other kind of stuff.
That's right.
And that's where the investment really is. And sooner or later, it's becoming so top heavy that it's hard to see how it continues. I do think the schools that are really very, very, very successful will survive. I mean, nothing's ever going to happen to Carnegie Mellon University, for example, although it's not a liberal arts school. But I'd like to think that the school I went to is a fairly successful school, that it will survive, especially now that I'm no longer working there as an adjunct. That was a step in the right direction, certainly. But I do think that it can't last, and this isn't me saying it. This is the consensus from people who work in this field of higher education, that there is going to be a reckoning in the next 5-10 years where not all of these schools that are out there are going to make it. And the ones that aren't going to make it are the ones that don't have big endowments, that rely largely on tuition dollars. And those are the ones who are in trouble.
Okay. Well, I must say, I find it unconscionable that the current model is to build the academia on the backs of student debt.
But it works.
It's despicable.
It works, and students respond to that. I hate to say it,
it's despicable. We got to go.
Yep.
Break. We'll be right back.
Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com or call Lynn at 412-316-3381. Lynn Cullen Live will return in a moment.
It's the Women in Film and Television International Summit, and it is coming right here, May 16th through the 18th at the Westin. If you are interested in the film and television industry, this is where you will want to be. Panel discussions, screening, speakers. I'm going to be emceeing a dinner Saturday night where we'll honor the director of Twilight, Catherine Hardwicke. To register, just go to wifti.summit.org. wifti.summit.org. Oh, by the way, the summit is open to anyone, men included.
Download the brand new CP Haps app and find out what's going on in Pittsburgh. It's the fun and free app that puts the most popular events at your fingertips. Text events to 77948 to download now and register to win tickets to see Lady Gaga at the Consol Energy Center on May 7th. The CP Haps app brought to you by Pittsburgh City Paper.
Now it's back to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com.
Okay. All right. Oh, gosh, my voice. Okay. You read this. Dorothea writes,
Lynn, just like we have single-gender high schools and grade schools, there must be a place in this world for single-gender colleges and universities. As Chatham's alums are aware, there are unique intangibles that you find at Chatham that you cannot find at co-ed schools. Money talks, and I'm sure this decision was all about money. They aren't the first to go co-ed, and they won't be the last. I believe Seton Hill and Greensburg went through this transition not that long ago. I would blame their marketing department for not promoting the very special and unique environment that is disappearing across this country as these schools go co-ed.
Thank you, Dorothea.
Esther's response to that, the school's response to that would be only 2 to 4% of female high school graduates say they are interested in a single-sex university.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true. Okay, so we got a bunch of other topics that we just want to jump at. You've written recently about all this August Wilson Center. Brew, ha, 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 ha.
Yes.
So share with us your point of view, which is there's a certain ambivalence. I feel like a lot of people are biting their tongues, aren't saying what they really think with this thing.
What do you think they really
Look at the smile.
What do you think they really think, and why aren't they saying it?
I think there's a concern to criticize very much. I mean, like to say, like what I would say at this meeting when, what's her name, Washington and these other black leaders stood up and were squawking at Fitzgerald.
Yes, Judith Fitzgerald.
I would say, hey, look, guys, this was your baby. And it was a baby that was supported substantially by the taxpayers, by local charity, I don't know that they've got much standing to be squawking at Fitzgerald. They made a mess, and now other people are cleaning it up.
Right.
And I think there's this reluctance to say this stuff because what? You'll be perceived as what? Dissing the black community?
Yeah.
I mean, let's...
Although I've spoken to...
Because I think the strongest voice on this has been Tony Norman, who is black.
Yeah.
And so maybe,
I'll try not to feel too insulted by that, but that's okay. He's been good on it.
I think he's been very good on it.
Yeah.
Okay, you've been very good too. But you think some people are like uptight about criticizing the the black establishment?
I certainly have not heard any dearth of criticism. I mean, maybe I'm looking too much at newspaper comment sections or whatever. There's no shortage of people who are willing to say this initial board was a disaster. They didn't do a great job.
No.
I think what's going on. I mean, honestly, if my feeling is this: if this is supposed to, the way this debate is going now is this: it's either A, the people who say we gave it a shot, it didn't work, let's let these hotel developers have a shot. That's the best chance we've got. Then there's the other side that's basically, this is being railroaded. Judith Fitzgerald should have talked more to the community. Other plans should have been considered. As
what other plan?
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Well, I mean, the other plan is there are these foundations who
pulled out the minute someone
pulled out, and not only that, only bid $4 million on this thing.
Only bid $4 million, which really doesn't correct any of the issues involved.
And in fact,
and then as soon as like a report was written that somewhat gave a back of the hand to their suggestions, they had a snit fit and withdrew their offer.
Yeah.
Well, so I don't think the foundations have made a serious offer.
Yeah, I think that's, and I think we should be clear about that. I mean, first of all, Dollar Bank has a $7 million mortgage. That's obviously what people are paying most attention to. But we got to remember that there are other people affected as well. There are the workers, there are the vendors, and these are often black-owned businesses. If you don't get, and the way this stuff works is the mortgage gets prior claim on any money raised. So if the foundations raise $4 million,
all that goes to Dollar Bank.
All that goes to Dollar Bank, and it has to. I mean, that's the way the world works. And so Dollar Bank walks home $3 million shy, which makes them as charitable an interest as anybody who gets credit for being a charity. And workers and the rest get a big fat goose egg. So my feeling about it and what I wrote is, if we're that opposed to this hotel proposal,
then
let's put our money where our mouth is.
Okay.
The difference between these things is about $5.5 million.
Where is it? Where do you get that?
I mean, look, here's the thing. When we want to do things for the sake of the Penguins, when we want to do things for the sake of the Steelers, when we want to do things, there's always money for that stuff. So let's just be honest about it. If we don't have the money for it, then we should just admit that we don't have the money for it, and just be quiet. If that's really what it is. But what I think is disingenuous is to say Judith Fitzgerald is a terrible, person.
Can we just say she's just doing the job?
She's doing the job, and unfortunately, she inherited a thing where money had been gone through. This is not the first time somebody tried to restructure. Basically, all the goodwill has sort of been exhausted. The patience of the lenders has been exhausted. So let's deal with that. If we're gonna do it, let's put our money where our mouth is, and if we're not, then we should just say let's do what we can to make this hotel thing work. And I'm not a big champion of this hotel proposal. I mean, I don't know if that works, but it's something. Yeah. It's not nothing. Yeah. It's something. And if that's the best deal we got going, I don't know. It's the only deal. It's the only deal. Yeah. So you can squawk and scream till you're blue in the face. The foundations are not really stepping up here. Yeah. They are not. And they don't have to. They've given before. I mean, I don't. Yeah. They paid for the building once. That's right. Why do they have to do it again? And then, here's another problem I have. Because a lot of these same people were saying, we don't want to be, we're going to be tenants. We're going to be beggars to this hotel. Well, okay. It seems to me you're beggars. Show me a scenario where you're not a beggar. Yeah. Yeah. So what's the? Well, I mean, I think it's a lot of I think you're referring to Salah Uddin, the former city councilor, who did he make that? That was his thing. That was Salah's. And I think obviously where that's coming from is there is a very real sense of injustice in how the black community and black contributions to the city have been slated in the past. And I think, to be honest, I think that was a big part of why this thing got built downtown in the first place. Because in the, late 90s and, when we were talking about all this stuff, if you were a cultural player in this town, downtown is where you came to make your bones. And so if you had that center anywhere else, it would seem like second class thing. Of course, now here we are in 2014. It's very easy to think of cultural destinations in East Liberty, you betcha, in along Penn Avenue. So it's a whole different picture. Right. But at that time, I think it was a pride issue, and I don't mean to slate that. Okay. But I think that's kind of where we're at still. Okay. As you point out, when it comes to the Steelers, the Penguins, there's nothing we can't do. All of a sudden, we got to rob a bank. We'll rob a bank. We need the money. We'll need them. We'll get the money. Well, this involves I'm going to do the Penguins. The Penguins, we ripped down at their request, right? Yes. Their old demand, I think, would be their demand. Their old arena, and put up a whole new arena for them, a block or two away. Right. And now we want to develop that space. And we had assumed that there would be lots of federal funds, right? Yes, coming in to help us. Yes. Now it turns out maybe those federal funds aren't going to be there because we did not take the adequate time to see if there was a way to save what was considered a historic structure and to repurpose it in some manner. And so now that can come back to haunt us. Yeah. Well, why didn't they see that before they did it? They were warned. They were warned. Yeah. Who is they? I mean, the Ravenstall administration, the Sports and Exhibition Authority. There were people saying even at the time, if you are running roughshod over the process, and you do that at your peril. Okay, so now we could end up with just this. Yeah, it looks like a neutron bomb here. No, a neutron bomb keeps the building. It keeps the building safe the people. It's the opposite of that. Yeah, it looks like a nuclear bomb hit that area, and we don't have the money to do it all by ourselves. So that shows a real lack of what. Yeah, I mean that they were doing what were the Penguins saying we might have to leave? I mean the Penguins. I mean the problem is you go in on these public-private partnerships, which again Consol is ultimately owned by us, the taxpayers, through the Sports and Exhibition Authority. So that puts us on the hook for if there are shortfalls and da-da-da-da-da. And basically they didn't want a competing facility across the way. They didn't want to have to be on the hook for maintaining two of these things. And so you get rid of one and you move forward. I mean, the decision, once you decide to build the Consol Center, you obviously can't keep the Civic Arena as an arena. Like, I mean, I think that... No, but there were lots of... There were things that could have been done. The problem... The argument... Right. The argument of those things was, well, you need to have the financing for it. Otherwise, this thing is an
and of course, we can't find financing for anything that doesn't involve the Pirates, the Steelers, or the.
Right, so,
that's it. So, you mean it's not going to be sports related? Well, then to hell with you. This is Pittsburgh.
Yeah. So we'll see.
So we'll see.
That was not a particularly strong note to end that on. I apologize.
That's okay. I mean, but this was, I don't know. All right. Is it Daryl Metcalfe, the idiot who's behind this effort now? Is there an effort to impeach our Attorney General?
And he is behind it.
Kathleen Kane.
Yes.
Widely believed to be an up-and-coming Democrat.
Maybe not.
Maybe not anymore?
Yeah, maybe not anymore.
Okay, so this thing, her refusal to prosecute these 4 state legislators who were taking money from what do you call that? The Sting guy, right? Mm-hmm. You think that will doom her now?
No, I
Is it an impeachable offense? And
no, I don't. Well, remember that the other thing Metcalfe's going after for is declining to defend the same-sex marriage ban in the state. I don't think this impeachment proceeding
will go
anywhere. Anything. I have a somewhat informed bit of speculation that there may be more trouble coming for her down the road. In part because I think stuff like this. Doesn't necessarily always happen in a vacuum. That's all I'll say about that.
Well, doesn't he sound like somebody who knows something that he's not willing to share?
Yeah, I think she's very early on in her term. The track record is mixed at this point, and we have to see where it plays out. But I would certainly think it's too early to speculate about her as a gubernatorial.
You know, I think you could be like a presidential press secretary.
No, presidential press secretary wouldn't even have gone that far down the road.
Yeah, but you got that ability to do, sound like you're telling us something when he ain't telling us anything. I love that. Very cool.
Yeah.
You have thought of the diplomatic service.
Yes, it's been suggested to me, actually.
Yeah, has it? Yeah. You know why? Because you got away with words.
Yeah.
You can use them to educate, or you can use them to obfuscate.
Yes.
And he was just doing some obfuscating.
Yeah.
Okay. We got to get a break in. Last one. We'll be back.
More is on the way with Lynn Cullen Live.
BurghBargains.com is your best bet for great deals in the Burgh. Log on today for exclusive bargains from your favorite events and shows like Pyrofest, City Theater, and the Improv, plus discounts on gift cards to the Cheesecake Factory, Wing Hearts, and Rumfish. BurghBargains.com, Pittsburgh's best bargains. BurghBargains.com.
All right, I've gone through all the tracks. Just move through the beats. Do your thing.
All right, everyone, let's hear it for West High's own Brooke Turner, a.k.a. DJ Hook.
Scratching at my first school dance takes confidence. So we're getting into college. I've got what it takes. So do you.
Visit knowhowtogo.org to learn what you should be doing right now to prepare for college. Start taking the steps at knowhowtogo.org. Brought to you by the American Council on Education, Lumina Foundation, and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Once again, here's Lynn Cullen.
All righty, we are back. Last week we were talking about net neutrality,
yes.
right? Because
yes, we
the head of the FCC, we were told, was about to allow or write rules, rewrite, I don't know, that was going to allow Comcast and a few other big boys to allow people with deep pockets to get better faster, better internet access
right.
and most people. And that is not net neutrality, believe me. That's not what it's about. So will someone explain to me this, which I got and of course I'm asking you, in the business section yesterday in the New York Times. The chairman of the FCC, Tom Wheeler, was speaking to the big organization that these big boys belong to. I don't know exactly what what the National Cable and Telecommunications Association. In fact, I believe he used to head that association.
Oh, dear. Wow.
Yeah, you know how this works, right?
Revolving door, yes.
You know how this works. And didn't I say last week, watch this guy get a nice corner office in Philly at the Comcast headquarters after his tenure. Anyway, so he's talking to these guys, and he apparently told them that he would use the FCC's federal authority to override state laws that restrict municipalities from offering inexpensive broadband service to residents, that he would be aggressive in not allowing some to have better access than others. I mean, he sounded exactly the opposite of what we were told. And it says his statements represent the first time that he's gone beyond encouraging competition to definitively stating that he finds competition lacking. Mm-hmm. Here's what he says. As chairman, I do not intend to allow innovation to be strangled by the manipulation of the most important network of our time, the Internet. He says he opposes the blocking of content by an Internet service provider. But then he says, and let me be clear, if someone acts to divide the Internet between haves and have-nots, we will use every power at our disposal to stop it. Yeah. But then at the same time, he says his new outline would allow broadband companies to offer some content providers a faster lane through which they can transmit video and services as long as they do not slow down other content to do so. Right. Well, now, wait a minute. I don't get that. Right. I don't get what is he talking out of both sides of his mouth?
Yeah,
What's he saying?
Right. It's like saying it's like saying I'm going to build a separate HOV lane. Yeah. And they get to drive 90 miles an hour.
But I won't slow
I won't lower the speed
limit from 55 on yours to 45.
Yeah. I mean,
well, so
it's not clear. I mean, I'm not a tech person, and maybe someone out there is. It's not clear to me that you can speed up some packets of data, some ones and zeros,
without slowing
them down, without slowing the others down, and certainly they become slower by comparison. Right. So, and as you assuming you're using the same wires, the same cables, the same whatever, the ability to move stuff quickly means more stuff's going to come through. So these higher end services, I would presume, that are going to be moving more video and all that stuff, they will clog that pipeline. And whether you intend for it to happen or not, I would suspect it slows down the remaining data in there. You know, I mean, I'm clearly not a technical person, but I don't see how you're speeding one side up. Your best case scenario is that it has no effect on other traffic, but we know how the Internet works. The Internet tends to aggregate traffic in particular locations. Certain nodes become more popular than other nodes, and the other ones kind of wither away into obscurity or whatever. So, I mean, the fact that you're going to enshrine that process by allowing these providers to select which those folks are going to be purely on the basis of their ability to write a check. I mean, essentially, you know what it's like? It's like a Supreme Court ruling that you can spend as much money as you want on a political candidate. You and I can still say everything we want to about that political candidate. Our free speech has not been constrained.
No.
It's just more free speech for all the people who have money. That's actually really the parallel. That's really the parallel. So Comcast gets to select who gets to drown out everybody else, but everybody else still gets to stand on the street corner and yell at people on the
we'll give you all guys megaphones.
Right. But Lynn and I can still talk in a normal tone of voice. That's what it is.
Well, that fits very nicely with just the way things are going in general, then.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Jesus. All right. Now, let me just point out that another train left the tracks.
Yeah.
Have you been noticing a lot of trains leaving tracks?
Yeah.
Have you been noticing that a lot of the trains leaving the tracks are carrying
large amounts of crude oil?
Crude oil, toxic.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The latest one, it derailed into the James River in Virginia.
Yep.
Here's the funniest line in this story.
Okay.
The spill probably won't have a significant effect on the James River.
Because it's already so foul.
Given its volume and the other pollutants already flowing into it. So they
might even clean it up a little bit.
Yeah, right. So, well, who cares? You won't even notice another 25,000 gallons of crude oil in the James. Is that not amazing?
Yeah, that's where we are. And, again, people should know. Trains just like this roll through Pittsburgh every day of the week.
Every day. I hear them. These are the trains I love when I'm in bed. I love listening to their whistles. And, they go right through residential neighborhoods.
Yeah, I used to live.
They're right along, as you know, the rivers.
Yeah. The rivers that... from which the water supply of numerous downstream communities.
So what? And there have been 9 significant train accidents in the United States and Canada in the last 12 months.
Yeah.
And
here's how bad it is. Is
anyone doing anything about this?
Here's how bad it is. Like when the accident happened in Philadelphia, I was like, oh, yeah, maybe they should. So I started calling around. And there's a National Freight Railroad Association or whatever, for the Burlington Northerns and Norfolk Southerns of the world. And I called over to them, and they were just like, "Oh yes, we're pushing to have new, more structurally sound cars on the tracks."
Yes, right. These cars are not
so this situation is so bad that even the Freight Railroad Association is willing to spend money to get new cars for it. Like I'm glad they're doing that and all that, but that tells you what about the status of the rolling stock that's currently on the rails.
Well, see, now I think it's not just that the containers are not meant to hold what they're holding anymore, but also the infrastructure. We know this country does not in any way keep its infrastructure in good working order.
Right.
Right? So I don't know. They also said they think that this might have happened as a result of a massive... I don't know. There was a retaining wall that collapsed onto Baltimore freight tracks the day before. They're thinking this one might be the result of construction near the trains tracks, which have resulted in some kind of buckling or subsidence.
We're dealing with an aging infrastructure.
And we don't. And
we're running all kinds of shit on these rails, and we are not paying to keep them up.
And then when it happens, and it has happened. I mean, this horror that happened in Canada with a train exploding outside a city and immolating. I can't remember how many people died in that. And we pay no attention. Here's a question, though, I have. A lot of this crude is coming out of Canada, out of the Bakken crude, reserve.
Yeah. Yes.
Is that not the same stuff that they want to build the Keystone Pipeline for?
This is what you're going to hear.
Well, okay, but I'm asking, if we're opposed to the pipeline, then this is the alternative.
Yes, or trucks.
Or trucks. So maybe a pipeline, which, yes, can leak, is still better. I'm asking.
Yeah,
Isn't that?
I mean, you're going to hear that argument, I suspect, in the days and months to come.
But isn't it? Is that not a reasonable argument?
It is.
I mean, it's going to be transported one way or the other.
See, now that's the argument that the environmentalists, I think, want to have, is that the real issue is that the pipeline opens it up to a much greater level of exploitation, and it's the very process of exploiting the tar sands that's the problem. I don't know that they're opposed to the Keystone XL because it's a pipeline. I think they're opposed to the Keystone of XL because of what it opens up. Now, obviously, along the route, there are a lot of people who say, I don't want this thing in my backyard. And that's and so that's part of the issue. But I think the real environmental critique is
that they don't want to facilitate more and more oil coming. But it
more and more oil because of the way because tar sands are an especially difficult, energy intensive way to get oil out. And I believe the product itself is dirty too, dirtier than.
But do you think that will stop the people extracting or the demand? The demand back to our marketplace here.
Right. That's the
argument.
That is the argument made for why
pipeline.
for why this is not a smart cause for the environmentalists to fight. I mean,
because they don't have
Look, this is.
They don't have an alternative that makes any sense.
Well, I mean, what the environmentalists would say is, of course, we have alternatives. We have solar, we have wind, we have these other things, and anything that opens this particular field up is a bad thing in its own rights. And to the extent to which that the pipeline allows that to happen, it's a bad thing. I think you're going to see this argument though. Interestingly, when the Act 13 decision, you remember this is when the Supreme Court's basically said the state's fracking law was terrible.
Yes.
And not complies with the Constitution. One of the dissenting justices, Michael Eakin, wrote a dissent, and he put a footnote in there, which I don't think I've ever seen anybody really report on, and I'm not really sure what the impact was. But what he said is this whole debate isn't really about the wells at all. It's about
this
pipelines.
Was in a dissent, or
this is in a dissent? Yeah, in his dissent, he said this debate. The real stakes here are not about what goes on at the drilling pads. It's about pipelines. It's about pipelines and where we allow them to go and what rules are going to govern that. And then he goes off on this little sort of discursive thing about how if you don't do pipelines, you end up with trucks. I think maybe he said rail, I don't remember. But he said pipelines are the safest way to transport this gas. It's the safest way to do all this stuff.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you are going to see this kind of stuff coming, I think, with every time an accident like this happens, you're going to see people who believe in pipelines using those things as a reason for why we should look more carefully at them. And I have not looked closely enough at the issue to say whether on a cubic foot basis or whatever the measurement is for what the best way is for the best way. What's the safest, best, most reliable way to schlep stuff around the country? I don't know.
Gee, that was a really good oration till you said schlep.
Sorry.
I mean, schlep didn't fit.
No, it didn't, I guess. What would you say?
Well, carry.
Carry. Convey.
Convey.
Disseminate. Distribute. That's probably the best way.
Right. Well, okay, but that's what I see. I've never known about this Keystone pipeline. I've not been clear about what the back and forth thing is really all about.
Yeah, that's it.
And since half of it is built, the lower half.
No.
Right?
Yes, I believe that's right. Yeah.
And I think there was a leak recently. Really?
Yeah. No,
yeah. So I don't think there's any way if we run on this oil and gas and all this stuff that of course there will be these problems.
Yeah, there's no free lunch
totally
here.
Safe way to do this.
And the only safe energy is the energy you don't use. I mean, that's what we conserve, what we choose not to burn, how efficient we are. That's the easiest stuff to do, and we never talk about it.
Okay, few quickies. So the DA is looking into the fact that this cop shot and killed a guy in Wilkinsburg. Have you looked at that thing? Did you see the autopsy report?
Yeah.
The guy was shot twice in the back of his shoulder, once in the buttocks. How is that not a person running away who's back? How is that shooting a guy in the back? Is that ever acceptable?
My understanding is there's tape of the dashboard cam tape, which I don't think has come out yet. Is that correct?
There is something. I don't know if it's
I
don't know if it shows the whole.
I think somebody was quoted in one of those stories saying that it's not difficult for a shot to strike somebody and spin the person around, and the officer continues shooting. I mean, we all remember the Amadou Diallo case where he was shot 43 times and it was in the space of a few seconds and it was multiple officers or whatever. So they tend to empty the clip. I mean, I don't know. I mean, the attorney is Zapal is looking at it, and beyond that, I don't know anything.
Okay, wait. There was another Zapala story. Oh yeah, right. Are you surprised that a jury in this town, I'm talking about the Mike Allen case, that they didn't believe, huh? Adam? Mike, what did I say?
Yeah, Allen. Yeah, who's somebody else.
Adams.
Yeah.
Who is Mike Allen?
I don't know.
Okay. Mike Adams' case. The jury didn't
find for the Steeler. Yeah.
Boy,
they didn't have a great season last year.
No, I am so... And I have to admit, I thought his story always seemed weird. And when you saw these pipsqueaks, I thought, why would they take on a big guy like that?
Yeah.
And here's the other thing I noticed. So those 3 guys who've now been exonerated of attempted homicide have spent almost a year in prison.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. For something now a jury has said they never did.
Yeah. Yes.
If they were rich, would they have been in prison for that year? They would have met bail, and they would be out.
Yeah. And one of those guys, of course, was found guilty of another offense.
Yeah, but the offense was
running away from the cops.
Running away from the cops. And who can blame him since he was about to have a year of his life taken away? Right? One ran away. They both ran. One ran away and another took off and ended up in Florida or something. So, they charge him with these kinds of crimes when they were they didn't, guess what? They didn't trust.
Yeah.
They're 2 black men. Yeah. They did not trust the justice system. Yeah. Can you imagine? And those 2 are still in jail.
It's an excellent closing argument, counselor. Very good.
And those 2 are still in jail.
Yeah.
The white guy is out.
Yeah.
Shocking, isn't it?
It is surprising how that whole thing has shaken out, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's it. Geez, there's so much to talk about. It's a busy weekend in Pittsburgh, whether you know it or not.
It's a marathon
weekend. And our teams are here. Yeah. Our faltering Pirates return home. And
I think it's funny that they kind of suck again.
Oh, Jesus, how could they? What is going on? They suck again. Jeez, you mean we just got 1 year? That was it. I can't bear it. I'm actually going to a game next week.
Oh, are you really?
Hey, come on, you guys. And the Penguins, you look a little wobbly too, buddy boys. Yeah. Let's step it up. Step it up.
Have a good weekend, Lynn.
Are you running in the marathon?
Do I look like I'm running in the marathon?
Certainly not. Me either. Monday. Toodaloo.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.